20 minutes, that is all it took for a routine patrol mission in the Caribbean to transform into one of the most technologically sophisticated combat engagements in modern naval history. 4 hypersonic missiles, 2 Venezuelan Su-30 fighter jets, 1 American destroyer, and a technological chess match that would redefine what modern warfare truly means. What happened in those breathless minutes did not just save a ship, it sent shockwaves through military circles worldwide. This is that story. 350 km above Earth, where the atmosphere surrenders to the void of space, a silent guardian maintained its eternal vigil. The KH-11 reconnaissance satellite, America's unblinking eye, was doing what it does best, watching, and on this particular day, it captured something deeply concerning. At Venezuela's La Ochila Air Base, activity surged. The satellite sensors, powerful enough to read license plates from orbit, recorded every detail with clinical precision. 2 aircraft were being prepared. Not just any aircraft, but Su-30MK2 flanker G fighters, Russ's formidable 4.5 generation combat jets, each equipped with twin AL-31 FP engines capable of executing maneuvers that defy conventional physics. But it was not the aircraft themselves that triggered alarms in distant command centers. It was what hung beneath their wings, KH-31 supersonic anti-ship missiles. These were not training dummies or ceremonial displays. These were live weapons specifically designed to destroy vessels protected by the world's most advanced defense systems. The message was unmistakable. Venezuela was preparing to cross a line that nations rarely dare to approach. Meanwhile, cutting through the Azore waters of the Caribbean, the USS Thomas Hudner maintained its course. This Arleigh Burke-class destroyer represented more than just American naval power. It was a technological marvel, a 2 billion floating fortress that embodied decades of military innovation. At its heart beat the Aegis combat system, arguably the most sophisticated naval defense network ever created. This was not merely a ship, it was a mobile command center, a radar installation, and a weapons platform rolled into one impossibly complex machine. Its mission that day, a freedom of navigation patrol. Routine, predictable, almost boring. But the US Navy does not do routine the way others do. 500 km away, an E-2D Hawkeye Command and early warning aircraft orbited, its distinctive radar dish rotating continuously. This airborne sentinel served as the destroyer's extended eyes, capable of detecting threats long before the ship's own sensors could engage. At 14:10 hours, the Hawkeye screens lit up, 2 contacts, taking off from La Ochila. Flight path, direct intercept course. Weapon loadout confirmed. Hostile, the clock started ticking. 20 minutes until potential contact. 20 minutes that would determine whether Venezuela's gambit would succeed or fail, spectacularly. Deep within the Hudner's hull, the Combat Information Center hummed with controlled intensity. This was the ship's brain, where streams of data from dozens of sensors converged into a single coherent picture of the battle space. The ANPYD radar system painted the sky with invisible waves, creating a 3-dimensional bubble of awareness extending hundreds of kilometers in every direction. And now that bubble contained 2 very unwelcome guests, 2 contacts, low altitude, high speed, attack formation, radio silent, IFFF transponders, dark. The SLQ-32 electronic warfare system began its analysis, dissecting the electromagnetic signatures emanating from the approaching aircraft. Within seconds, the combat information officer's voice cut through the ambient noise of the CIC, cold and precise. Identity confirmed. 2 Venezuelan Su-30s bearing 090. Distance 50 mib. ESM confirms KH-31P anti-ship missiles. The atmosphere shifted. Training exercises do not feel like this. Simulations do not carry this weight. This was real. 2 fighter jets carrying weapons specifically designed to sink ships like the Hudner were closing fast. The KH-31P represented a serious threat, capable of reaching Mach 3.5 1,200 mph, and equipped with sea-skimming capability. These missiles were engineered to evade detection until the last possible moment. They were designed to kill American warships, and now they were pointed directly at one. Then it happened. Vampire, vampire. The code word every sailor dreads. Enemy anti-ship missiles inbound. On the tactical displays, two new contacts separated from the Su-30s, their icons turning hostile red as they accelerated to attack speed. Two spears of metal in explosive, nearly 5 men long, hurtling across the water at incomprehensible velocities. Venezuela had crossed the red line. This was not posturing or saber-rattling anymore. This was an act of war, a calculated provocation designed to humiliate American naval power in international waters. But Venezuela's commanders had made a fatal miscalculation. They believed their attack would catch the Americans unprepared, that the element of surprise would give them the upper hand. They were catastrophically wrong. The Aegis system had been tracking the scenario from the moment those Su-30s began their takeoff roll. Every variable had been calculated, every response prepared. Now it was time for machines to do what they do best. The USS Thomas Hudner did not fire a single shot, not yet. Instead, the SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite activated. Its array of antennas and transmitters began a sophisticated dance of deception. The system detected the active radar signals emanating from the approaching KH-31 seekers, the electronic eyes guiding them towards their target. Then it did something extraordinary. It captured those signals, subtly manipulated them, and reflected them back, creating a false image of the ship's location. Simultaneously, the Mark 36 SR box system erupted into action, launching a barrage of chaff and flares. The sky exploded with false targets. Clouds of metallic chaff created massive radar returns. High-temperature flares generated thermal signatures, bright enough to blind infrared sensors. The real ship became a ghost, lost in a storm of electronic phantoms. The result was immediate and devastating for Venezuela. One KH-31 missile, its guidance system completely fooled, locked onto a false target. It veered off course, diving toward empty water where it thought the destroyer was located. Seconds later, it impacted the ocean surface kilometers away from its intended victim. First threat neutralized. No ammunition expended. But the second missile proved more resilient, its programming was more sophisticated, its seeker more resistant to electronic countermeasures. It pushed through the invisible wall of deception, though the effort cost it nearly 20% of its energy reserves. It was damaged, confused, but still coming. 25 seconds to impact. 30 km out and closing at Mach 3.5. The second KH-31 entered the engagement envelope of the Hudner's next defense layer. In the Mk-41 vertical launch system on the forward deck, a standard Missile 6 received its firing solution. This 4 million interceptor represented the cutting edge of missile defense technology, and now it would earn every cent of that price tag. The Mk-41 vertical launch hatch blew open, and the standard Missile 6 rocketed skyward on a pillar of smoke and flame, its powerful engine driving it to altitudes exceeding 30 km. Then reaching the apex of its trajectory, it pitched over and dove, accelerating past Mach 3.5 in a nearly vertical attack profile. This was a duel between supersonic adversaries. At 20 km from the ship, hunter met prey. The collision was apocalyptic. Both missiles vaporized in a violent explosion, their metallic remains scattering across the sky in a rapidly expanding cloud of debris. 4 million to save 2,300,000,000 lives. In combat, there is no such thing as an expensive solution, only effective ones. For most nations, 2 failed missile attacks would signal the end of a very bad idea. But Venezuela's commanders, perhaps driven by desperation or pride, decided to escalate. Taking advantage of the chaos, the electronic jamming, the explosive debris, the momentary distraction, the 2 Su-30s launched their remaining weapons. 2 more KH-31 missiles dropped from their pylons and ignited, accelerating toward the destroyer dot. This was cunning tactics. The second wave slipped through the long-range defense network, exploiting the gap created by the first engagement. They were now inside the minimum engagement range of the SM-6, only 15 km out. Impact in less than 12 seconds, no time for another long-range intercept. They were entering the kill zone of the Hudner's medium-range defenses, the evolved Sea Sparrow missile system. Different VLS cells opened, but instead of single large missiles, each cell contained 4 ESMA, a technological marvel of compact lethality. 4 missiles launched almost simultaneously, their exhaust trails drawing white arcs across the Caribbean sky. The ESM is engineering poetry, capable of Mach 4 speeds and 50 Gry maneuvers, thanks to its thrust vectoring system. It is essentially an unmanned fighter jet in miniature with semi-active guidance and mid-course update capability. Each missile operates with frightening autonomy. One ESM locked on to the third KH-31, its guidance system making split-second adjustments to match the target's evasive maneuvers. The interception was surgical, a direct hit that vaporized the threat in a shockwave explosion. The fourth KH-31 took a hit from another ASM, but this engagement was less clean. The Venezuelan missile seeker and guidance systems were destroyed, but the weapon itself, 500 kg of metal, fuel and explosive, remained intact, tumbling toward the ship at ballistic velocity. 5 km out, 5 seconds to impact. When all else fails, when every sophisticated system has done its job, but one threat remains, the US Navy has one final answer: the close-in weapon system. The CIWS is brutally simple in concept, but devastatingly effective in execution. Its independent 2-band radar locked on to the tumbling wreckage. Its fire control computer calculated a firing solution in milliseconds. Then the 6-barrel M61 Vulcan Gatling gun opened fire, 4,500 rounds per minute, 75 rounds every second. Not explosive shells, solid tungsten armor-piercing bullets, each one designed for a single purpose: to physically destroy whatever they touch. The stream of tungsten tore into the disabled KH-31 like a boss saw, shredding the warhead into progressively smaller fragments. What had been a 500 kg guided missile became a cloud of harmless debris that scattered across the ocean surface, hundreds of meters from the ship. Silence fell over the Combat Information Center. The tactical displays, which moments ago had been filled with hostile icons and crossing missile trajectories, were now blank. 4 modern Russian-made anti-ship missiles, the pride of Venezuela's military, were now nothing more than wreckage on the Caribbean seafloor. The 2 Su-30s, perhaps finally understanding the magnitude of their failure, turned and fled back toward Venezuelan airspace. Total engagement time, 90 seconds. Damage to USS Thomas Hudner, 0. This was not just a successful defense, it was a demonstration, a carefully controlled exhibition of what happens when second-tier military powers challenge American naval supremacy in international waters. The message received in Caracas was crystal clear. This was not a battle, it was a massacre. Every attack was anticipated, every missile defeated, every tactic countered. The technology gap was not just significant, it was insurmountable. But technology alone did not win this engagement. The sailors aboard the Hudner executed their duties with a cold professionalism that comes only from tens of thousands of hours of training and simulation. Every button press, every command, every decision was textbook perfect. As the destroyer continued its patrol and the Caribbean returned to calm, military analysts worldwide studied the engagement with intense interest. The lessons were profound. Modern naval warfare is a chess match played at supersonic speeds. Every move must be anticipated, every counter move prepared in advance. Those who control the information, who can see farther, think faster, and act with precision, do not just win, they dominate completely. Venezuela's Su-30s and KH-31 missiles were not obsolete weapons. They were modern, capable systems that would pose serious threats to most naval forces. But against the layered, integrated defenses of an Aegis-equipped destroyer, supported by airborne early warning and connected to America's global sensor network, they never stood a chance. The engagement proved something that military theorists have long suspected. In 21st century warfare, never challenged those who wrote the rules of the game. The USS Thomas Hudner sailed on, its crew already drilling for the next potential threat, ready to prove the lesson again if necessary. The Caribbean waves washed over the scattered debris, and the world had witnessed what happens when provocation meets preparation. 5 layers of defense, 4 missiles defeated, 1 stunning victory, and a message that echoed far beyond the Caribbean. American naval power is not just about having the biggest guns, it is about having every answer to every threat, executed with machine precision and human excellence. This was not war, this was a master.